Lesson 2, Unit 5. The Logical Framework Matrix, Part 2. The second step in the development of the log frame deals with indicators. These are the qualitative and quantitative variables to verify that changes produced by the project intervention have occurred. They provide a basis for monitoring and evaluation. For each of the expected results specified in column 1 of the log frame, indicators will be selected in order to measure these results. The second column of the log frame is for the objectively verifiable indicators. The purpose is to ensure the information collected should be the same if collected by different people, that is not open to the subjective opinion or bias. Indicators are performance measures that tell us how to recognize the successful accomplishment of an objective. At the top level of the log frame, the impact indicators are the main reason for the project. They help measure the contribution to the higher goal. They measure the extent to which the project contributed to the goal. This indicator is only used during the evaluation. They are evaluated after the project has ended, and they may also measure the level of sustainability of the project intervention. Indicators at this level are usually linked with international standards or global development goals, such as the Sustainable Development Goals. For example, incidence of waterborne disease reduced by 70% by 2018. At the next level, outcome indicators measure the changes that come as a result of the project outputs. They are also used for evaluation at the completion of the project. Outcome indicators usually measure changes in behaviors, skills, and practices in the target population. Depending on the type of project, the data for the outcome indicators can be collected during the monitoring phase. Outcome indicators relate to the achievement of short-term and medium-term effects of the project outputs. For example, number of people in target communities using safe water sanitation practices. In the next level, output indicators measure the quantity of products and services delivered by the project. These indicators track the progress of the project and its efficiency in delivering the expected outputs. They are a direct result of the project activities. For example, number of people trained on safe hygiene and sanitation practices. Output indicators are also known as process indicators, as they relate to the efficiency and quality of the goods and services produced by the project. Finally, activity indicators. They measure what the project does. They help track the progress of the project. They are measured in quality and quantity and used to monitor the project scope, schedule, and budget. For example, number of water wells to build in a month. Some versions of the log frame use activity indicators. Other versions prefer to use this level to list the inputs and resources the project will use to deliver the outputs. There are many types and categories of indicators. Among the most common are the following. Quantitative indicators are represented by a number, percentage, or ratio. In contrast, qualitative indicators seek to measure quality and often are based on perception, opinion, or levels of satisfaction. There's also proxy indicators that are used when results cannot be measured directly. For example, a proxy measure of improved governments could be the number of political parties and voter turnout. Composite indicators are formed when individual indicators are compiled into a single index. The CREAM principles are used to select good performance indicators for the log frame. It is a simple guide to test the quality of the indicators identified for the log frame, and that will be used in the monitoring and evaluation plan. Indicators should be clear, relevant, economic, adequate, and monitorable. This is also known as the CREAM criteria for good indicators. Process to construct indicators. Indicators should be measurable in terms of quality, quantity, and time. This is called QQT targeting and consists of 4 simple steps. It starts with a basic indicator sentence, like reduction in water and sanitation-related diseases. Then we add quality, reduction by 80%. Then we can add quantity in 100 communities. And finally, we add time by the year 2018. This is a simple process that can be used to guide the development of good indicators. The means of verification, the third column, contains information about the sources of information that will verify the progress of indicators. The means of verification describe the data or information used for the indicators. The source will depend on the available resources and the focus of the project. Means of verification may be either existing sources of information or information collected by the project. Sources of information can include surveys, government data, focus group interviews, observations, and project reports. These are some of the important considerations when choosing data sources. First is that data needs to be reliable, complete, accurate, economic, and free of bias. The means of verification are used to develop the monitoring and evaluation plan, and it's important that the project makes an analysis of the effort, the time, and cost to collect this information before completing the log frame. The fourth column of the log frame describes assumptions that need to be fulfilled if the vertical logic of the results changes to be true. An assumption is defined as the necessary condition for the achievement of results at different levels. Understanding and assessing the nature of assumptions is part of good project design. Being realistic in the identification of assumptions is critical for the success of the project. A wrong assumption is often the source of failure during the project implementation phase. Assumptions are the external factors or the conditions that are not under the direct control of the project. For example, the stability of economic conditions and the support by the local political authorities. This flowchart facilitates the selection of the assumptions. It is a simple process to help determine if an assumption can be used or not in the log frame. It starts with identification of an assumption. If the assumption is likely to occur, then it can be included in the log frame. If the assumption is very likely to occur, then it doesn't need to be included. If the assumption is unlikely to happen, then there are two paths. If it's possible, a redesign of the project will be required. If the design cannot be changed, then the project is not viable. Similar to the vertical logic, there is also an horizontal logic that goes across the log frame matrix. The horizontal logic defines how the different levels of results will be measured by indicators to track progress, the means of verification that validate information on the indicators, and the important assumptions that define and validate the logic. The horizontal logic helps determine the means by which the project will track progress and the conditions that will make it successful. A log frame must be tested to ensure the consistency of its logic. A simple test is to ask if the log frame satisfies the following cause and effect relationship. If the preconditions hold, then the activities can be completed. If the activities are completed and the assumptions hold, then the outputs are delivered. If the outputs are delivered and the assumptions hold, then the outcome can be achieved. If the outcome is achieved and the assumptions hold, then the project contributes to the impact.